Alright, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Cuban Rebel Girls, 1959. Giving this 5 out of 5 stars. This is going to be another Barry Mahon flick. It is Errol Flynn's last movie. He was enamored by Fidel Castro. I'm presuming this is before the death squads, when Fidel Castro was coming to the United States, saying all this propaganda against the dictator Bautista, straight from behind rebel lines, Errol Flynn presents Cuban Rebel Girls. And he even put his 17-year-old girlfriend in this one. Errol Flynn, who's 50 years old in this movie, I think he died shortly afterwards. His 17-year-old girlfriend is in this. He's got the gut hanging out, and he's clearly had one too many drinks in this latter part of his career. Cuban Rebel. Speaking of which, man, I just had a really good burrito in Daly City. I was waiting for my car. I should have gone there last week instead of the fried chicken waffle joint, which is right next to it, across the street from the Toyota dealership. Anyways, Cuban Rebel Girls, or Assault of the Cuban Rebel Girls, is a 1959 semi-dramatic documentary B-movie and the final on-screen performance of Errol Flynn. He stars with his underage girlfriend, Beverly Odlin. He's got a little jailbait going. The script was written and narrated by Flynn, who was sympathetic to the Cuban Revolution being led by Fidel Castro in its early phase. Notice the operative words here, early phase. I guess he changed his mind ex post facto. In his memoir, Flynn called it an interesting side venture. I spent many days with Fidel just before the Bautistans quit. I guess he didn't know that Fidel was a hardcore communist who likes to shoot his political enemies. Anyways, this is directed by Barry Mahon, written by Errol Flynn. I should give Errol Flynn writing credit. We'll just say written by Errol Flynn. There. And it didn't mess with my my connection when I clicked the edit button. That was the first. Starring Beverly Odland, Errol Flynn, 50-year-old man, and his 17-year-old girlfriend. Released, production company Exploit Films, Inc., distributed by Joseph Brenner Associates. Release dates December 25th, 1959. Christmas Day in New York, and March 1960 in LA. Running time 68 minutes, perfect running time. Country United States language English. This is going to be one of those so bad that it's good type movies. I challenge you to make sense of what's happening in this movie by paying close attention to the dialogue. Because it's hard to do that in Barry Mahon movies in general. But some of them are just unwatchable. But this one definitely fits in the so bad that it's good type category. It's very similar to Rocket Attack USA, and which came out 2 years later. I guess it was redemption time for Barry Mahon to make the communists look bad. And that one, Errol Flynn arrives in Cuba on behalf of the Hearst Press to do a series of articles on the revolution of Fidel Castro. He notices some changes in Cuba caused by the rebellion. Yeah, burning down cane fields. He checks into a hotel and he's contacted by one of Castro's agents, a female who takes him to a beach resort. He meets a young man who offers to take Errol behind the lines to meet Castro. Errol flies in his own plane, he meets the rebels, and he files several articles, including one of the Cuban rebel girls. The movie then goes into the story of 2 U.S. girls, Beverly and her friend Jacqueline, whose brother Johnny, Beverly's boyfriend, is fighting for Castro in Cuba. The 2 girls decide to visit Cuba. They take $50,000 raised by U.S. Friends of the Revolution to be used to buy guns. They visit Key West and then they fly to Cuba. They join the revolution with the soldiers of Castro's army, and they go on rebel attacks where Beverly gets with her boyfriend, who is shot on one of the air raids, and he is left behind after being captured. Oh, well, that's pretty much the movie right there. Also known as Assault of the Rebel Girls. In opening credits, our thanks to the new army of Cuba, whose help in creating this picture was invaluable. After making the film, Beverly Odlin got into a brawl with Flynn's second wife, Nora Eddington, at Odlin's birthday party in a nightclub. Nora later said this was because she took exception to Odlin referring to Flynn as elderly. I guess that makes me elderly because I'm 54. Rights to the movie were bought by Joseph Brenner Associates. Brenner described the film as an authentic and non-political background drama. Non-political. The New York Times said Flynn and his associates provide little that is entertaining, artistic, or informative in this largely static, jerry-built, independently made adventure. Mr. Flynn cannot be blamed for giving the appearance of being very, very tired throughout these phlegmatic proceedings. The Los Angeles Times said, the only interest of this picture could possibly have is that it happens to be the last performance by the late Errol Flynn before the movie camera. That and the fact that it gives the public a chance to see Beverly Odlin for the first time. Both are disappointing. The storyline is weak, and poor direction and editing merely add to the confusion. The remainder of the cast is inconsequential, and their acting, if it can be called that, is on par with the overall production, which is uniformly bad. It is a sad ending to one of the most flamboyant actors of our times. Film Inc. magazine wrote that the film compels interest mostly by virtue of showing Odlin in a lead role, Flynn on death's door, and the weirdness of such a pro-Castro film, even though he wasn't a confirmed commie then, coming from a Hollywood movie star. I don't think Errol Flynn knew that Castro was communist this whole time. He was completely naive. Therefore, he has invincible ignorance, as they say. All right. Cuban Rebel Girls, 1959, 1 hour and 8 minutes. Flynn was probably too drunk to notice that Castro was a communist. It gets a 3.3 out of 10. IMDb, very low, 3.3 out of 10. Only 338 ratings. Errol Flynn, playing himself as a war correspondent, helps Fidel Castro overthrow Cuban dictator Fulgencio Batista. The film was shot with Castro's cooperation while he was still fighting Batista. All right. Here are some more like this. The Roots of Heaven. Too much too soon. The Sun Also Rises and The Big Boodle. I gotta get those. But I bet you I won't be able to find any of these on YouTube, Tubi, or Amazon Prime. The last film of Errol Flynn. He died from a heart attack 2 months before it was released. The U.S. correspondent during the final scene in a hotel room says, well, I guess this winds up another stage in the fight to rid Latin America of tyrants and dictators. But the spirit started by this handful of wonderful rebels is spreading and growing stronger every day. And to all you men and women fighting for political freedom and your own beliefs everywhere, I wish you good luck. In the opening credits are thanks to the new army of Cuba, whose help in creating this picture was invaluable. This was edited into The Sin Syndicate, 1965. It's just also a good movie. All right. Release date December 25th, 1959 in New York City. Country of origin, United States, which English, also known as Attack of the Rebel Girls. Filming locations, Cuba. Production company, Exploit Films. It's one runtime of 1 hour and 8 minutes. It's in black and white. The sound mix is mono, and the aspect ratio is 1.37 to 1. Here's a review, a much less flattering review from somebody named Real Reviews and Recommendations. This one's dated November 5th, 2024. So a recent review. And Real Reviews and Recommendations gives this one a much lower 4 out of 10 rating, closer to the average rating on IMDb. The title of the IMDb review by Real Reviews and Recommendations, is Flynn's Last Ride. On the 1st of January 1959, at 3 a.m., the infamous dictator Fulgencio Batista fled Cuba. Fidel Castro, then admired by the U.S., became the country's leader. The night Castro was informed of Batista's ignominious exit, there was but one journalist in his company, actor and notorious bon viveur Errol Flynn. Flynn, whose fame was waning and fortune dwindling, was a fan of Castro, having gone to Cuba to write a series of articles for the New York Journal American about the Marxist Leninist revolutionary. While there, Flynn made two low-budget propagandist films, the awkwardly named Cuban Story, The Truth About Fidel Castro Revolution, and Cuban Rebel Girls. I'll have to look up Cuban Story, The Truth About Fidel Castro Revolution. Directed by Barry Mahon and written by Flynn, Cuban Rebel Girls is an intriguing, though not exactly illuminating or well-made venture. A docudrama, the film loosely describes Flynn's activities in Cuba, as well as the fictional adventures of the titular girls. Despite the fact that he was a fine writer, Flynn's narrative is not compelling, nor does he offer a nuanced or unbiased view of Castro or his revolutionary plans. Further, the dialogue throughout is overly expository and awkwardly stilted, made no better by the wooden performances for most in the cast. We love wooden performances on this channel. I think Barbara Bain and her husband on the set of Space 1999 in his wildly entertaining autobiography, My Wicked Ways. Flynn describes the film as an interesting side venture, though there was little of interest offered to the viewer beyond seeing the great raconteur making his last on-screen appearance. Though his narration throughout is spirited, Flynn's appearance betrays his decades of rabble-rousing and carousing. He looks older than his years, sadly, but unsurprisingly, he would die 2 months before the film was released. Technically, it is an uninspiring watch. Director of photography Merrill S. Brody adopts a documentary approach, though the absence of professional lighting leaves proceedings ugly and dark. Yep. That's Barry Mahon flick, and his pals are at it again. At times, it is generally hard to see what is going on, which is made worse by poor sound quality that leaves dialogue muffled and indistinct. This technical inadequacy detracts from the film's potential impact, making it difficult to engage with the narrative. The whole affair appears cheap, like a quickly made puff piece, which one supposes it was. Conversely, the inclusion of actual footage from the Cuban Revolution adds a touch of authenticity, though feels disjointed and out of place with the overall narrative. This blending of fact and fiction creates an uneven tone, leaving viewers unsure of whether they're watching a poor documentary or a melodramatic dramatization. Despite this, the film aptly serves as a time capsule, capturing a unique moment in history when Hollywood intersected with global politics in an unexpected way. Furthermore, Flynn's fascination with the Cuban Revolution and his involvement in making these propagandist films speak to his complex, often contradictory personality. Known for his swashbuckling roles and amorous off-screen antics, Flynn's later years were marked by a sense of disillusionment and a search for new adventures. Cuban Rebel Girls, despite its shortcomings, stands as a testament to Flynn's enduring charisma and his willingness to take risks. even as his star was fading. Flynn's girlfriend, Beverly Odland, stars opposite him as the main rebel girl, a U.S. citizen on a mission to supply weapons for the revolution. La Revolution. Odlin was not a natural actress, awkwardly delivering lines as if she was held at gunpoint. Jackie Jackler, as her co-conspirator, does marginally better work, though also seems out of her depth. John McKay is no more than adequate as Johnny, Beverly's boyfriend, and the rest of the cast fade into the background, leaving little impression whatsoever. Had Mahon take a firmer hand directorially instead of the lax approach he seems to have adopted, the film could have been rather interesting. Flynn's passion for the subject matter is evident, and his performance is noteworthy, even if he appears a little drunk towards the end, despite the clumsy dialogue and cliched narrative. Flynn's admittedly biased attempts to educate his audience about the Cuban Revolution is commendable, if executed somewhat gracelessly. In conclusion, Barry Mahon's Cuban Rebel Girls is perhaps best viewed as a curiosity rather than a serious cinematic achievement. It offers a unique window into a bygone era, complete with all the imperfections and peculiarities that come with it. For fans of Errol Flynn or those seriously interested in the history of the Cuban Revolution, it's a film worth watching, if only for its historical significance and the swan song of a Hollywood legend. So, in other words, you should watch Cuban Rebel Girls for the same reason you should watch Plan 9 from Outer Space. For Cuban Rebel Girls is to Errol Flynn as Plan 9 from Outer Space is to Bella Lugosi. Karate Man shows no interest in anything whatsoever I've been saying in my last two videos, although he wasn't in the chat room in my last video. He says, been binge watching Miami Vice. Believe it or not, I still haven't watched the whole series. It's taken me 5 years. Well, I'm sorry you have to go through that. Miami Vice was not fun watching 2 seasons. And I've had the box set for 5 years and I'm still up to season 3. Yeah, you and me both. 2 seasons was too much for me. Have you seen all the episodes? No. Crockett and Tubbs for life. Okay. You guys, 2 guys who dress up like drug dealers and drive fancy cars in Miami and listen to 80s pop music. Wow. Okay. Karate Man has something to look up for. You don't wear socks because that would ruin the look of the shoes. Isn't that what Crockett said? Don't wear socks because it would ruin the looks of the shoes. Oh, man. Anyways, I'm going to drop one more review now before I cook dinner. And then I'll finish up my 4th review of the day. Another somewhat intriguing but obscure Catholic documentary. one of these newer saints. She should probably be uncanonized at one point, but she hasn't been canonized yet. I'm sure she will be under the new uh, big strong boss of the Vatican, that Bob guy, whatever his name is. Anyways, we'll we'll end it here. Like I said in my last video, I'll go down my list when I do my $2 better review in about 5 minutes later. No, maybe 15 minutes. I take it back.